What's going on, guys, and welcome back to #AskGSM, episode 454 here today for Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Without further ado, let's get right into it, guys, here for today. Starting with the YouTube questions, Micah does it from YouTube. Their first question was, now that Kevin Owens is looking to be going back to the Kevin Owens of the Black and Gold brand, should he be the one to defeat Bobby Lashley for the United States Championship, or would you book someone else? I wasn't even really thinking about that on Monday. I was just happy to see Owens looking aggressive again for the first time in a long time. Probably for the first time since the Shane feud about 5 years ago when he beat the shit out of Vince on SmackDown. But that was 5 years ago. I'm not sure if we've seen that vicious side of Kevin Owens since then. So I like that a lot. I wasn't thinking about how far he can go with it. Honestly, if they can kind of continue to build that Kevin Owens up, I would like to see that Kevin Owens back in the main event scene. Fuck the U.S. Championship. And I know they're making it mean more now, and that's great. Kevin Owens is a former, 2 or 3 time United States champion. He's held that championship a bunch. 5 years since he last held it. I wouldn't be opposed to that. We haven't seen a series of matches between Bobby Lashley and Kevin Owens as far as I can recall. I'm sure they've had matches before. I just can't remember them ever feuding before. So I would be fine with that. I do think his ceiling is higher than that, though. I feel like if they wanted to, they could take him all the way to the main event scene and make him a viable threat to whoever beats Roman Reigns for that championship. So I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking if it's Drew. I'm thinking if it's Cody or whatever. Cody, if he were to beat Roman, that wouldn't be for a while. But whoever is the next big babyface to be holding World Championship gold, Kevin Owens should be built up for that. So you can have him beat Bobby Lashley. That's fine. I would honestly rather see someone else beat Bobby Lashley that could maybe benefit from beating Bobby. I mean, Kevin Owens is already established. I'm thinking of someone else in the roster, like a Dijakovic if they went there, which isn't going to happen, but someone like a Dijakovic or, I know Ciampa just lost on Raw, but someone along those lines, that they either call up or whoever. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I feel like Kevin Owens with his current character could go a lot further than the mid-card scene, at least in my opinion. He basically asked who I could see winning the tag team title tournament for the women. And he sent this in before we found out the brackets on Raw, but he was predicting that the finals would be Sasha Banks and Naomi versus Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Obviously, neither of those teams are even in the tournament. Shayna and Ronda should absolutely be champions at some point, without question. How long that's going to take, I don't know. Shayna's a heel right now. I thought Ronda turned heel at SummerSlam, so it might not be long before we see them linking up on TV. I feel like that'd be pretty cool. Sasha and Naomi not being in the tournament does not bother me, because you weren't just going to throw them in the fucking bracket. I mean, you could have done a mystery team, sure. I feel like that would have made it a little obvious. But what I would do is do the tournament, I would have Dakota Kai and Io Sky win, and then have Naomi and Sasha come out afterward to confront the new champions. Because it wouldn't make sense for Sasha and Naomi to be in the tournament. They were already the champions. They should just honestly be automatically granted a rematch of those championships they were stripped of by WWE for walking out, which they can incorporate into a storyline. So having them be in the tournament, I feel like would be silly. Just crown the new champions, whoever it might be, preferably Io Sky and Dakota Kai, and then go with them from there. His next question, do you think we will ever see Scarlett wrestle? And if she does, who should be her first match? No, I don't think we... maybe we will, because she can. I've seen her in action in person before at a Northeast Wrestling show earlier this year. She's not awful. She's better than I thought she would be. And I know she wrestled in TNA years ago, but, that was more of a character stuff, and she didn't really have actual matches there. She's not great. Let's put it this way. She's not as bad as I thought she would be. She's probably better than people like Tamina, and probably better than Dana Brooke. I'd have to see Dana Brooke in action again. I know she was in action on Raw, but I'd have to really compare the two. Bottom line is, she's not on the same level as Sasha Banks or, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Bayley, Bianca, Rhea, whoever, Asuka. So it's not even really worth putting her in that role. To me, honestly, I felt the same way about Lana. Lana is just far better in a managerial role. And Lana was just never any good. Scarlett, from what I've seen, isn't completely terrible. She's probably better than Lana was. But that does not mean I would put her in the ring. I like Zelina. She plays her role well. And she in the ring has gotten better. The thing with Zelina, though, I also think she would be far better in a managerial role than she has been in the in-ring role. I know she won the Queen of the Crown tournament, the Queen's Crown, whatever. I still feel like she's another one who would be better off as a manager and wrestling occasionally in mixed tags and stuff like that. So Scarlett, if she is to wrestle, not to say she'll never wrestle in WWE, but if she does on the main roster, I feel like I said this the other day, we could see her in a mixed tag team match alongside Karrion Kross against whoever they're feuding with. His next question. Do you think Montez Ford could be the face of WWE someday, similar to John Cena, Roman Reigns, The Rock, Austin, Hogan, whatever? If not, who's got the star power for that? He might be, and he might not be. I don't know. I've never really seen Montez Ford being the guy. I feel like when Roman Reigns was coming up, we all knew he'd be the guy. And the question then becomes, if it's not Montez Ford, then who is it? I don't know, honestly. It might not even be someone who's currently on the roster. And that was the issue with the Vince regime in WWE that I hope Triple H can fix. First of all, don't build a company around one person. That was one issue. But at least with Roman, we kind of got an idea that he'd be the one to be featured in the future face of the company, whatever. I don't get that vibe from anyone currently in the company. There's a lot of people who could be, who have the potential to be the face. People like Montez, and Bianca kind of already is for the women, and Rhea as well, and people like that. But they haven't really made that as clear as it was when Roman Reigns was on the ascent 10 years ago. So hopefully we can. It doesn't have to be someone who fits Roman Reigns' profile, and a big guy and long dark hair or whatever. It could be someone like, Montez, who doesn't exactly look like Roman Reigns, which I think is great. Like, they have a black face of the company, and he's fantastic. He's a great spokesperson. He can go in the ring and stuff like that. Race obviously has nothing to do with it, but, they usually go for, like, the muscled-up guys, as you mentioned, John Cena, Roman Reigns, Hogan, Austin, and Rock. More so Austin didn't really fit into that profile, but Montez Ford is great. Not to say yes or no, because I think he could be. Will he be? I don't know. But honestly, like I said, though, I would build a company around several people. Like, honestly, in the Attitude Era, you think of Austin and Rock, but at least back then, if Rock went down with an injury or when Austin went down with an injury, you had Triple H, you had The Undertaker, you had Kane, you had all these other people, Mick Foley, all these other people surrounding the main event scene that you can plug in there at any point. So that's what I would do. Make Montez Ford, though, one of those people. Should Triple H bring back Big Cass and Enzo to their tag team division for one last run in WWE? Honestly, I used to be a big fan of theirs back in the day. To me, the answer is no. I just feel like that ship has sailed. It's been so long. I don't know if anyone would really even care to see it. They kind of had lightning in a bottle. WWE fucked it up. They both had their respective issues. Cass more so than Enzo. More people don't like Enzo, but I think more so Enzo because he's just not very good and he's a loudmouth. I just do not get two shits about Enzo at this point. Big Cass, though, honestly, I'd rather see him be brought back on his own. And I never thought I would say that when he got canned 4 years ago, but he went on to really get better on his own in Impact. When he arrived in Impact about a year ago, cleaned his act up, and he got a lot better and whatever. He really improved and had a very good run over there. And he recently had his contract expire, and we haven't seen him since. I thought he would go back to WWE, and that was when Vince was still in charge. I thought Vince would rehire him. I mean, with Triple H being in charge and Big Cass being a Triple H guy, honestly, I do see him going back there at some point, if not soon. I don't know if I would put him with Enzo, though. I know they need tag teams and whatnot. They were never great in the ring. The biggest thing about Enzo and Cass was that they had the crowd behind them. If you were to put them back in 2022, would they be as over? I mean, I guess they could be, but Enzo to me, honestly, is just damaged goods. I mean, the guy's just so fucking annoying, and he's not really that good. Cass, I think, has outgrown Enzo as his tag team partner. They can team occasionally on the indies. I saw them face the Hardys at an indie show here in the Northeast a few months ago. But I feel like Cass would be better featured on his own. They need more big men right now on the rosters, on Raw and SmackDown. They just brought back Karrion Kross. That's great. I feel like they could use Big Cass on Raw. So that's just my opinion, though. His next question, I think they should build, also from @Micah Does It. He's got a bunch of them here. He also asked about, I think they should build a storyline around Sami Zayn being booted out of the bloodline and challenging Roman for the championship after Karrion Kross takes the WWE title. It could be similar to Kofi versus Bryan in Elimination Chamber 2019, where Kofi almost got it done, but failed slightly. What do you think? Yeah, I don't think Sami Zayn will be the one to ultimately beat Roman Reigns for the championship. I mean, stranger things have happened. I guess it could if you really made it make sense. I mean, Sami has just been Sammy's phenomenal. As far as in-ring credibility, I just don't see that happening. But if you were to do a one-off, absolutely. I mean, they already had a match on SmackDown late last year for like fucking 15 seconds. But Sammy got fucked over by Brock. He got the shit kicked out of him by Brock, and that was really that. So, yeah, I know. I would love to see them really kind of go back to that with Sami Zayn as a babyface, getting booted from the bloodline and whatever. I think that'd be a great idea. Will they actually do it? I don't know. I don't think so, but I do like the idea, though, where Sami Zayn slightly comes up short. People are behind him. People hate Roman when he wins. I like that idea a lot. His next question, do you think WWE will start putting house shows on the network, house show cards in the network, similar to what they did to Beast in the East in 2015, and Roadblock 2016, where Ambrose faced Triple H for the WWE title, which was a great match, by the way? I don't think so. I feel like with Peacock, they're just kind of, I don't want to say lazy, but they're just kind of doing the more mainstream stuff. So now they're currently focusing, as far as like extra content for their streaming services, they're kind of more focused on the A&E stuff, which are great. The biographies are great from what I've heard. And on Peacock, you also have the WWE Evil series, which is kind of tailored more for the mainstream audience. And from what I heard, it was a success. I mean, I heard from a lot of people who do not watch wrestling that saw the show on Peacock, either watched an episode or at least came across it on Peacock, and I think that's pretty cool. They have the pay-per-views on there. The Table for Threes they only recently brought back. They don't really, I mean, they do the Broken Skull Sessions, which is great, which I still have to catch up on, by the way. They do all that sort of stuff, and I think that's terrific. I would love if they did more house show stuff. Not every house show, obviously. I think there was a question back in the day, not just to me, but just in general. Why don't they do more house shows on the network and stuff like that? Because at that point, a lot of the house shows that are going on for NXT and WWE on the weekends are all the same shit. They're all preparing for the next pay-per-view. So they're not going to show you what they're doing at SummerSlam beforehand on Peacock. The shows that you mentioned were like special shows. Beast in the East was their one Japan house show back in the summer of 2015. Great show. All of them were great shows. I think they did 3. I would put probably that one first, and then the Roadblock show from early 2016. That was in Canada. All of them had Brock on it. That was kind of like the main attraction why they filmed it. That one also had Dean Ambrose and Triple H for the WWE title, as you mentioned. Great match. That one also had actually FTR versus Enzo and Cass, speaking of which was also a really, really good match. And then prior to that, you also had, what was that? The MSG show in October of 2015. They hadn't done a live MSG show in a long time, and it was fine. It wasn't a great show by any means, but they did Cena and Rollins, I think, for the United States Championship main event, United States title. So, yeah, I would love if they did more of that sort of stuff. It's been so long, I don't think they ever will. Like I said, with Peacock, they have their money. They're more so focused on just putting up the pay-per-views and the occasional series and Broken Skull Sessions. I feel like the days of... Because the whole point of doing those sort of shows that you mentioned were attracting new subscribers to the network. They don't give a fuck about that anymore because they already have their built-in base with Peacock. They don't really have to convince me or you to tune into Peacock, sign up for Peacock, whatever, at least in the States. Internationally, maybe, but, at least here in the States, they don't really give a fuck about you and me anymore because they already have our money with Peacock. And, a lot of other people, Peacock's already a very successful service as far as how many people have it and already have it from having Xfinity. That's the case with me. So that's probably why they'll never do stuff like that again. If they do, it'd be cool. I just don't foresee that being the case. And his last question, Seth Rollins and Dexter Loomis feud could be fun. What do you think? Yeah, that could be fun. Rollins as a heel and Loomis kind of stalking him as a face. That could be fun. Honestly, after what we saw on Monday's Raw, and I tweeted this yesterday, I want to see Loomis finally used as a heel. Alexis mentioned this to me, and even before he came back, but in NXT, he was great. He really grew on me from his time in TNA, which I didn't really like. But he did good work in NXT, and he got over as a fan favorite. He did the comedy stuff, the indie stuff I thought was great. But honestly, though, in NXT, we never really got to see him utilized as like the American Psycho version of Dexter Loomis that we saw in TNA. I didn't like the TNA stuff, so maybe if they try to do that again in WWE, it wouldn't work. But I think it's at least worth a shot. They never really utilized him as a heel in WWE before they turned him face, and he kind of got over in that role. And that might be the best role for him, but now that he has a fresh slate on the main roster, I would do the creepy shit and have him be a heel and stalk people and stuff like that on the main roster. It can make for a very interesting story. So if that doesn't work, then turn him face and do what you did with him in NXT. And then you could do the Rollins feud, who's currently a heel. But yeah, I mean, off the get-go, though, from the get-go, I honestly would use him as a as a heel because we never really got to see him in that role initially in NXT, at least not for very long. From Facebook, No L, their first question was, thoughts on the whole fans turning on Liv, and do you see a heel turn? I mentioned this in my SmackDown audio review the other day, but it's so fickle. And honestly, I don't even really blame the booking. The way she tapped out at SummerSlam was silly, and I said this the other day, but listen, if she was already pinning Ronda, and she was aware of that, and you can hear the count, why the fuck would you tap out? I mean, if you know you're about to, if Ronda Rousey didn't tap out, and she kicked out or whatever, moved her shoulder, and Ronda still had the armbar in, that's when you tap out. But it's not just then, it's like this typical wrestling trope, like when Cena beat Orton in that Iron Man match, which was great, but he had him in the STF, and Orton tapped out with like 2 seconds to go. You can't hold on for another 2 seconds, really? Like, if you passed out, maybe, I get it, but tapping out with mere seconds left, I would think you're human. If there's like 15, then maybe, but if there's mere seconds left, why the fuck would you tap out? They've done this finish before where people tap out at the same time they get pinned, or they pin someone else, whatever. That just never made any sense to me, because it's like, why wouldn't you just hold on for after, unless you don't know that you're pinning them? That doesn't make any sense, but anyway. No, I thought the booing was just extreme. Completely unnecessary. These were the same fans that were cheering their fucking heads off for her a month ago, and Liv was getting great reaction. She still does, even at SummerSlam, so, I mean, I chalked it up to being 1 week. If she gets booed this week and the week after, then we have an issue. Would I turn her? Honestly, no. I just feel like she's a more natural babyface. She's over in that role. She's a great underdog. And Ronda is just so miscast as a heel, or as a babyface, that you should turn her heel. And I hope that's what we saw at SummerSlam. Same thing with Charlotte. You're not going to turn her back into a babyface. You can't have Liv, Charlotte, and Ronda all as heels on SmackDown, even if they do bring back Naomi and Sasha Banks. That's just not going to happen. So at least if they're trying to build up Liv as this credible champion, status or whatever, they're going to build her up to, to be a credible champion and whatnot. You're not going to turn her heel and then keep her in that role. So, I mean, I guess you could. I'm not a fan of that approach. I wasn't a fan of how they turned Lacey, and that kind of got better with time with the promos and whatnot, at least in my opinion. That's very divisive, I understand. But with Liv, though, I am adamant, do not turn her heel. I mean, I guess she could work as a heel. She was very annoying in that role as part of the Riot Squad. I was not a fan of her then. I just feel like she's built this genuine connection with the audience as a babyface. She finally got her moment. Why would you fuck that up by turning her heel just because one crowd booed her? And I feel like the fans booing her, honestly, was a case of the fans being fickle. It wasn't even like the SummerSlam finish where she cheated to win or she beat the shit out of Ronda. She did nothing wrong aside from tapping out at the last second. That's not her fault. She did nothing heelish. Ronda got screwed, I guess, sure, but then Ronda was the one who beat up Liv and the referees afterward like a fucking bitch. So why would she be the babyface? I don't really understand that. Justin David K from Facebook. His first question was, I've been a huge fan of the Cruiserweight division in 205 Live. Could you see Triple H bringing back the division to a specific brand rather than the show? Or is it a lost cause by now? It's a lost cause, at least for right now. They've already brought it back twice. I mentioned this last week. I think someone else asked me about this a week or two ago. They already tried it, and I realized when they tried it the first time, it was under Vince's regime on Raw. The Cruiserweight Classic was amazing. One of the best tournaments I've ever seen in wrestling history, or at least in WWE in the last 15, 20 years. Just amazing stuff. From that point, it was all downhill when they made it exclusive to Raw and they did the whole purple rope shit. It just looked ridiculous. They never interacted with the actual talent on Raw. No one watched the Tuesday night show. The ratings were in the toilet as far as what we know. Again, Triple H probably would have done it better, but it was around for, it wasn't even like it was a short-lived experiment in 2016. They kept the Cruiserweight division around for a very long time. They even made it exclusive to NXT, and honestly, even when it was in NXT towards the end, no one gave a fuck. No one cared. So, if you were to bring it back anytime soon, they already have too many belts as it is. Get rid of some of the tag titles, like, they already unified some championships, great, but like, get rid of the 24/7 title. The women's tag titles I've never been high on, but if they use them properly, fine. I was happy when they merged the Cruiserweight Championship with the North American title because that division was dead by the end. They would have to hire a whole bunch of new Cruiserweights to fill out that division. It was perfect in 2016, but in 2022 when they fired a majority of that talent that would be in that division, I mean, who's even on free agency that you can bring in to do it? I mean, they could bring a lot of people back, I guess, but The answer is no. I do not want to see it back anytime soon. They already did it in the early 2000s with the light heavyweight division, made that the cruiserweight division. That failed. They brought it back in 2016, 10 years later, and people were willing to give it a chance, and they fucked it up. So, honestly, after 2 times, I would say never do it again. Maybe a version of that, at least not anytime soon. It was a good idea when they did it originally and they made it exclusive to Raw, because I'm thinking, okay, that helps kind of fill out the 3 hours and kill time and whatever. But then they completely fucked it up and no one cared, so it's like, all right, why even do it again? And his second question, being a big fan of Santos Escobar, could you see him being a legit top title contender on the main roster? I could if they pushed him as such. And honestly, now I'm hopeful and optimistic that they can and that he will. And when I say he, I mean Triple H. If Karrion Kross can go from having one of the worst debuts in WWE history, one of the most uneventful runs in recent WWE history, to now being brought back less than a year later and being immediately inserted into the main event picture, attacking Drew McIntyre and staring down Roman Reigns, the top champion, then anything is possible. I mean, honestly, they can bring in Santos and make him a star. And Triple H is very high on Santos. He spent a lot of time in NXT. It's time for him to get called up. I really do hope he loses to Tony D'Angelo next week. They put in the clause that he can't bring Legado with him. If he loses next week, only he has to leave NXT. The rest of them, Elektra Lopez and whoever else, have to stay in NXT. Elektra can stay in NXT. She's not that good. Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza, Cruz del Toro, whatever, they should be in the main roster. Del Toro's been in NXT for fucking years. Wilde's been there for over 3 years now. That tag team division on the main roster could really use them, and it doesn't sound like they'll ever win the tag titles in NXT. I would love to see them on the main roster with Santos, getting that whole group in there. I feel like they're kind of incomplete without him, and vice versa. But still, he should be in the main roster. And again, if pushed properly and they need top title contenders right now, he could be a top face in either show. Absolutely. I wouldn't have said that a month or two ago, given who's in charge. Vince probably would have never fucking called him up for whatever reason. He checks all the boxes, in my opinion. But with Triple H now in charge creatively, anything is possible, specifically that. So I'm not saying he will be, because anything can change, but I absolutely think he can be, because he's that good. Let's see. Go to the Twitter questions here. At Boss Antelope, 86. I missed your number there at the end of your username. Their question was, do you think bringing the women's tag team titles back was a good idea? Also, out of curiosity, what's your favorite Kurt Angle match? All right, two-parter here. Bringing back the tag team titles, Listen, I'm not really a fan of. I was honestly happy when they got rid of them or vacated them and didn't talk about them, because the division has meant nothing for as long as it's been around. The only time those women's tag team titles were meaningful were when they debuted them 3.5 years ago. As soon as they put the belts in the Iconics, those titles meant nothing. Their reign sucked. And Sasha and Bayley tried to revitalize that division in the summer of 2020, but as soon as they went to Shayna and Nia, those titles went back to meaning nothing. So I'm not a fan of it, but listen, if Triple H is in charge, and Triple H is the same guy that came up with the NXT women's tag team titles, which I thought was a bad idea. But if he can make these titles mean something and actually worthwhile, then I'm okay with it. It's more opportunities for the women, more stories to be told. That's great. If they go back to being a paperweight after this tournament is over, then no, I wish they didn't bring them back. So only time will tell. I do hope that Triple H can make them more of a priority, but we won't know until we see it be put into effect. As far as my favorite Kurt Angle match, probably him and Shawn from WrestleMania 21. That match is amazing. Him and Ray from SummerSlam 02 is also up there. I mean, there's a lot of them. The Brock matches were great. I'm trying to think of the other Kurt Angle matches that stand out. I had a lot of good matches with John Cena as well. Him and Taker I've seen. I haven't seen it a lot, but I know that's an amazing match from No Way Out 06. I honestly was more of a fan of Kurt during his TNA. And when I started watching wrestling, he was in TNA at that point, and that's in 2008. So he had some amazing matches in TNA with AJ Styles. Those were some of my favorites, specifically him and Styles as partners against Bad Influence, Daniels and Kazarian. Slammiversary 2012. Phenomenal match. I'd put that up there as well. He didn't have many other matches in TNA that I absolutely loved. He had a lot of great matches there, but ones that stand out as my favorite. My all-time favorite Kurt Angle match, though, would probably be the Shawn match from WrestleMania 21. Just an amazing match. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Check out his stuff. That's great work, as they always say. His first question was, so with the Warner Media / Discovery merger coming up, Do you think that there is any chance this affects AEW's opportunity to get a better TV deal at the end of next year? Absolutely it does. Absolutely. It doesn't sound like they're cutting any projects from TNT or TBS, whatever, which is good. That's good news for AEW. And it sounds like Tony Khan has a good relationship with the people in charge. That doesn't mean much, though. I mean, they could still cut anything at that drop of a hat with AEW, so doesn't mean much. I could see them cutting like the fucking quarterly Clash of the Champions or Battle of the Belt specials. I mean, those are kind of pointless anyway. I could see them cutting that sort of shit and whatever. No, I don't think it's good news as far as that goes, because come the end of next year, it depends how much really changes. But if you heard about the Batgirl thing, which we talked about here on the show last week, it sounds like they're really trying to cut costs. That sounded like a tax break thing, but they're still cutting a lot of stuff and trying to save money. I mean, with AEW, if their ratings are not that much better than they were when the first TV deal was offered a few years ago, and they got really lucky with that too, because they got offered that TV deal for more money from TNT right before COVID. So when COVID hit, they probably would have been fucked, but they got really lucky in that case. If the ratings aren't that much better, I mean, I know the shows do well for TNT and TBS, whatever. They bring in close to 1 million viewers a week. That's great. It's weekly content every week of the year, every week out of the year. I don't know if they'll offer them more money. They might just get the same deal, if not less or whatever. Or I don't think they'll leave TNT or TBS. I don't think that's the case. I don't know if they're going to get this astronomical amount of money, though, for a new TV deal if their ratings aren't that much better and coming off the reports that they're trying to cut cost. So that's not good. They really got to amp up their content and do better numbers in the next year, because if they don't, I mean, I've always said it's better that they're staying, I don't want to say stagnant, at least they're maintaining the numbers they have and not going, it's not like they're doing 400,000 viewers for Dynamite. They are for Rampage, which is fucking terrible. But Dynamite being what it is, it could be worse, but it could also be a lot better, and that should be a point of concern for them going forward into 2023. His next question. So that women's tag team tournament field is certainly something, isn't it? A lot of makeshift teams, and Lions and Star called up already. No, I don't think they're getting called up. That team makes no sense, but listen, I want a toxic attraction in it, but if they're not going to win, and if they're not even going to go to the finals, which they wouldn't, because Stark and Lions are on the SmackDown side. Raw has more women's tag teams than SmackDown. So they had to put in a random team from NXT. I would rather it be them than like... So, I don't know. You're not going to put Carter and Catanzaro, or whatever her new name is, Katana Chance. Oh, that's so stupid. You're not going to put them in there. They just won the women's tag team titles. Triple H is not going to put them in there to lose as the new NXT women's tag team champions. If they were to merge the titles, then yeah. But if not, then that's stupid. Yulissa Leone and, I forgot the other woman's name, but that tag team, they were in the 4-way last week or a week or two ago. No one really knows who they are, and they're not big names. You have Toxic, who are some of the biggest stars in that women's division in NXT. But again, if they're not even going to make it to the finals, because I honestly see my prediction is Kai and Sky are winning the whole thing. If not them, then Raquel and Aaliyah, who are probably going to the finals. I don't think it's Natalya and Sonya. I don't think it's whatever, Xylee and Shotzi. That's such a random team. I think it's going to be Raquel and Aaliyah versus Kai and Sky in the finals, and Kai and Sky will win it, and then bring out Sasha and Naomi. That's what I foresee happening. You just got to put in two random women from NXT that are notable names. I mean, Nikita Lyons isn't that established, but she's been one of the faces of that division since she debuted earlier this year, late last year, whatever. And Stark is also notable because she's been around for the past year and a half, and she just came back and has momentum. So they'll probably advance past the first round, maybe. I'm not sure about that. They might not even make it past the first round. It's cool that they have them in the tournament. Yes, lots of makeshift tag teams, but you got to start somewhere. If they want to make this something, they want to make this tournament mean something. I mean, it's better with 8 teams than 4. They could have very easily done a 4-team tournament with just the women on Raw. But listen, they want to expand it to SmackDown. They want to make it fair. That's great. I still think the championships are completely pointless. Not in theory, because other divisions, other companies have them, and they made them, mean something. WWE, I just don't have the faith, even with Triple H in charge. I hope I can be proven wrong, and he can make those belts matter, and, I'll start to care about them again for the first time since they introduced them 3.5 years ago. But time will tell, so I'm not really sure, but a lot of makeshift tag teams. The match on Monday was really not that good. It should not have been a long match to begin with, but... Again, though, just time will tell as far as what they do with them, and I do hope Kai and Sky can win the whole thing, and they can kind of build a division out of that going forward, so that's what I would do. At Kyle Rochelle 19. Becky Lynch was right back in December when she said that the fans like Liv Morgan and will get bored of her. Becky was right that it was stupid and dumb that she got booed. I think she's a great babyface, but is it fair to say she's like the 2016 version of Becky Lynch? Who, Liv Morgan? Yeah, Becky was an underdog back then, and she was over. Becky never really got booed, though, from what I can recall. I mean, that was we're kind of blowing this out of proportion. If she gets booed this week and next week and whatever, then we have an issue, like I said earlier. It might have just been 1 week. It might have been that one weird crowd in whatever city they were in on Friday, Texas or something. I'm not sure, so we'll see. Currently, I do not think that she is the 2016 version of Becky. Becky did not get booed back then. Becky was always very likable, and her booking is similar, that she always lost whenever it mattered most, and then she finally won the championship out of nowhere, had a few-month run, and then it was over, and then she wasn't put back in the title picture for several years after that. That might be the case with Liv. Liv might be, I don't think she'll ever be as good as Becky, but as far as the booking, yeah, it's similar. But as far as the characters, Becky was a bit more established and had more, credibility in the main title picture than Liv does at this point. But I could see the similarities, though. And his second question, is Roman Reigns ever going to show up on Raw or just wait until Clash of the Castle to drop the WWE Championship to Drew, or have Karrion Kross take the title from him? We still have no idea what's going on with the two-title situation. I know that it was reported about that USA Network wants their own champion. All right, I agree, but I don't know. I don't foresee that happening. I don't know how that's going to work exactly. I'm not really sure. So we'll see. But as far as the Roman thing, is he ever going to show up on Raw? Yeah, I think he will. He was on SmackDown last week. He did appear on the Raw right before SummerSlam. I'm not saying his appearances are regular, because they're not. He shows up randomly, and he's a part-time. He really is the Brock schedule at this point, honestly. He should be showing up more, but I do foresee him showing up on at least 1 or 2 Raws before the pay-per-view, which is in 3 or 4 weeks anyway. As far as the championship stuff, I wish they would take at least the WWE title off of him. I would give that to Drew. I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, why would they say, this match is only for one title, not both? I mean, in storyline, it's one championship. I know he carries around both belts, but it's one undisputed title. They're not 2 separate championships. He's not defending the Universal and the WWE title like Keith Lee was back in the day as NXT champion and North American champion. It's not like that. So, I'm not really sure how that's going to make sense, but they have to figure that out. At Iwagoon91, as we wrap up here, the last couple of questions. We got several here, actually. Besides Gargano and potentially Candice LeRae, who do you see returning to WWE with Triple H in creative? We got Karrion Kross already, Dakota Kai, and Dexter Loomis. That's a nice, trio right there. Who else could I see coming back? There were a couple names. Bronson Reed, absolutely. I mean, some of these people have contracts. Like Adam Cole and Keith Lee could be back at some point. It sounds like they're tied up to deals in AEW for a very long time, if not for a few years, so not anytime soon. Andrade, I don't know how long he signed there for, but honestly, he should go back to WWE. I like the Roos stuff in AEW right now, but beyond that, I mean, he really should be in WWE. I mean, he wasn't used great there, but with Triple H in charge, they still have Zelina Vega. I feel like he'd be a fool not to go back. Same thing with Malachi Black. I know he's probably signed there for a few years, but him back in WWE would be cool at some point. As far as immediately who can they bring back, I don't know what Bronson Reed, Jonah's schedule looks like with New Japan. I think he just beat fucking Okada, so I don't think he's coming back to WWE anytime soon. But he would be cool there, and Taya Valkyrie would be great to see back, or John Morrison. He'd be back for a 3rd time, so probably not him. Taya never got a fair shake. She'd be great to see back, so there's probably more names that don't come to mind, but those are a few that I would do. His second question, Paul Heyman stated in the past that he had booked TNA, now Impact Wrestling, that had he done it, he would have brought in Bryan Danielson fresh from his release from the WWE and summoned everyone that would have eventually set up a match between him and Kurt Angle. What are your thoughts? That sounds like a great idea. I don't know if Bryan Danielson would have gone to Impact. I know he's talked about being released, and I don't know, maybe they didn't want to bring him in. I don't remember. Maybe he had that 90-day, and by the time before that was even up, WWE brought him back. I don't remember, but that would have been cool, though, to get a Bryan Danielson feud back in that time period when Kurt Angle was still in his prime. It kind of sounds like what they did with Nigel. They brought in Nigel McGuinness and put him in a feud with Kurt right out of the gate. It seemed like he'd be a star, and then shit happened. It didn't really work out that way, unfortunately, but No, if Paul Heyman was booking things, I mean, there's probably things that he would have done that weren't great. But as far as that goes, that sounds like a great idea on paper. Would you like to see Sabin, Shelley, and Kushida team up to challenge for the AEW Trios titles? Yes, that would be fucking cool. I don't think they would do that. AEW has enough trios as it is. I don't know if they need to bring in any outside talent, but that would be pretty cool, though. At noob_n_co 1991, what are your thoughts on Dexter Loomis' return to WWE? Because the last time we saw him, he was at NWA, and he just disappeared without a trace. Glad he's back, though. He was on NWA USA like a few weeks ago, so, you know, maybe it sounds like he knew he'd be going back, so he winded down his dates there. I'm not exactly sure, but he had been making some appearances in the NWA in the last couple of months. No, I'm happy to see him back. I became a fan of his in NXT, as I said earlier. I think he's a perfect fit for the main roster. I would try him out as a heel, and he deserves a chance. If it doesn't work, then okay, I get it. But they didn't even try. They didn't even try calling him up. That's the whole point of NXT, to create stars for the main roster and also get over your own talent. I get it, like the homegrown talent, the sports athletes, whatever. But still, they didn't even fucking try with the guy. So again, they can bring him in. If it doesn't work, fine. At least we know. But now we can finally find out, because they never really gave him a chance to begin with. So at least it's not like they beat him down a million times and then they bring him back and he's a main eventer. I mean, that's kind of what they're doing with Karrion Kross, but Karrion's talented enough to make that work, I think. Dexter never even was exposed to the main roster audience who don't watch NXT. So he's kind of coming in as a fresh face. I'm all for it. I think it's pretty cool. Last two questions from at E13A. Do you think CM Punk would ever resolve his issues with Triple H and return to WWE? I think he can. Do I think he will? No. Is it possible? Yeah, I mean, Triple H brought back Bruno. He brought back Warrior, who it sounded like he had issues with. I think Triple H might have been on that, self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD. So if he was the one that kind of brokered that deal and brought back Warrior, I mean, that speaks volumes. So people change, people get older, people grow soft. I don't know if CM Punk ever will, but, I would like to see him back at some point, and Triple H bringing him back. Vince might be, I feel like Punk had a better relationship with Vince than he did with Triple H, obviously. But Vince, with as petty as he is, he probably would not have even attempted to get him back. And the creative sucked at that point. Hopefully the creative gets better and things actually do change, unlike what Punk said in the interview recently. Then people have a reason to be hopeful, and Punk, can come back. So if Punk came back when Vince was still in charge, yeah, he has a better relationship with Vince. But the problem there, though, is that the creative sucked, and Punk would have just been just another guy almost immediately. He still might be if Triple H brings him in. But I would hope Triple H does, pun intended, do what's best for business and make him a star out of the gate, depending on when he would be brought back. And his last question here, has Rey Mysterio ever been one of your favorites? Like number 1 or 2 or 3, no. I actually was not a big Rey Mysterio fan when I first started watching wrestling. I actually did not like Rey Mysterio at all, interestingly enough. I met him once in a mall, one of the first wrestlers I ever met, May of 2010. I still have the picture of him at the signing and him signing my Rey Mysterio autobiography. But no, I didn't really become a fan of Rey till like closer to when he left WWE, interestingly enough. And then I really liked his work in Lucha, and then I was very happy to see him back in 2018. So now I'm a big Rey Mysterio fan. I've met him a bunch of times. I've interviewed him. He actually followed me on Twitter after I talked to him late last year, which was really fucking cool. And Rey Mysterio is like the nicest guy. I'm not really sure why I didn't like him in the first place. Maybe because how he was booked or whatever. I don't know. But no, I really like Rey now. I fucking love Rey Mysterio. Was he ever one of my top 1 or 2 favorites? No, but that's just because I've always had so many different favorites. It's not really 1 or 2. Christian, Punk, and Regal were always the top 3, but then you have Zack Ryder and The Miz and Jericho and a lot of other people, AJ Styles and Matt Hardy for like personal reasons and stuff like that. So I've always had a lot of favorites, and it's hard for people to kind of ascend to that 1 or 2 or 3 spot, but I am a Rey Mysterio fan now, though, and he's a great guy, and I will continue to be a fan until he's done and beyond. And that's going to do it, guys, for hashtag AskGSM here today, episode 454, I believe I said earlier. I don't have it written down here. Yeah, 454, holy shit, for August 10th, 2022. Thank you guys, as always, for sending in your questions. I appreciate it. Be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not in the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Check out all my interviews from the last couple of weeks here on the channel. We got a bunch of them and more to come in the days to come. So subscribe if you haven't already and never miss a video. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.